Tell me a fact and I'll learn. Tell me a truth and I'll believe. But tell me a story and it will live in my heart forever. The Names Not Numbers Oral History Film Documentary Project is remembering the stories of the Holocaust and is telling the story of the Holocaust for the world to hear, for the world to learn, and to inspire future generations to combat anti-Semitism and all forms of hatred and intolerance. This unique project is in its 16th year. Over 2,500 survivors and 6,000 students have participated in it worldwide. The students were instructed by teachers and professionals. They learned interviewing techniques from journalists. They learned filming techniques and editing skills from documentary filmmakers. The students interviewed, filmed, and edited the 2-hour interviews with each survivor to make 20-minute oral histories that are compiled in the Names Not Numbers documentary at the school. You're about to view the documentary Names Not Numbers, a movie in the making. This film chronicles the students as they are being trained by the professionals and includes their reflections. In it is embedded approximately 10 minutes from each interview. This is the students' work, their filmed and edited interviews. Through this project, our students are preserving history, and they are the witnesses to the witnesses.
I began to see the fear in the adults, and I sensed something is not kosher, something is very, very wrong.
The Germans came into the town.
And then they took us to the ghetto. They took my father and my mother to Germany. They killed him.
We saw these huge chimneys. There was a terrible stench.
I couldn't even say goodbye to my mother, neither did she. We were just choked up.
One can only imagine how the Jews of Israel are able to overcome, able to survive, and ultimately to once again thrive. We look back and we're inspired by those who preceded us, who also overcame, who also persevered, and who also not only survived, but thrived.
Rabbi Jacobson introduced us to what the Names Not Numbers project is about and what we're going to be doing.
Our 8th grade class for the past 6 or 7 years has had the tremendous zichus, the tremendous privilege of producing a Names Not Number living documentary. Each of you are going to be meeting and interviewing a very, very, very special hero.
I think learning about the Holocaust from a first-hand experience just really shows how real it is.
No matter how much we hear about it, we'll never really know what it feels like, and meeting people takes it one step closer.
Interviewing them one-on-one, I feel like you're able to connect with them more than reading their book because you're talking to them personally. When you're talking to somebody, you feel the emotions like in the room.
We don't really understand something till we speak to someone that's been through it. So we could obviously never put ourselves in their shoes, but we could sympathize and empathize with them that what they went through was crazy and nobody should ever have to go through that again.
I feel like when you actually meet the people, you really understand that it was a real thing that happened and people really went through those things.
I saw a fence in front of me, and on the other side were children playing.
The video we watched of the Names Not Numbers before was showing what the program is about, explaining what they did and the stories they went through.
31% of all Americans believe that 2 million or fewer Jews were killed in the Holocaust. Among young Americans, 66% of them could not identify Auschwitz as a concentration camp or death camp.
It is important to interview Holocaust survivors now because there's a lot of people denying it.
In the next few years, we might not be able to do this anymore.
It's important to have these videos that we could show our children when we're older and their generations and generations. It will take away a lot of disbelief in the Holocaust.
This is the last generation that has the privilege to hear the survivors' testimonies firsthand. You are the direct beneficiaries to hear these firsthand testimonies. The survivors and the students are telling the story of the Holocaust for the world to hear, for the world to learn, and to inspire future generations to combat anti-Semitism and all forms of hatred and intolerance. Our Names Not Numbers students are learning history, recording history, and preserving history through their work.
The reason it's so important to do this project is because if you don't talk about it, if you don't tell over the story, history will repeat itself and another millions of Jews will be killed for only being Jewish.
It's important because soon there won't be survivors left and future generations can't interview them.
Project Names Not Numbers means something really special to me because my great-grandfather who went through the war.
I didn't get a chance to interview my great-grandparents because I was very young when I saw them.
I had a great-great-grandfather that went to Auschwitz.
My great-grandmother was a Holocaust survivor.
I have survivors in my family, but I never got to meet them.
My parents thought that it's amazing that our generation still can hear from these Holocaust survivors, their stories, because it happened so long ago.
My parents are very excited for me that I get to do this. Not every kid gets to have this privilege to do it.
Mr. Zolden came to ASHAR and he talked to us about techniques to when we're going to interview survivors.
To be prepared, good. What else? How about eye contact? Is eye contact important?
Ari Zolden taught us that eye contact is key and it's really important.
Because it shows that we're more in focus and paying attention to them and to their story.
We're going to pretend that I'm a Holocaust survivor and Pearlie is a journalist asking me questions, and we're going to pretend that we're on television. So go ahead, ask.
What was Pesach in your family like before the war? We had a mock interview and I asked him questions.
Which was very good to do because it helped me so much.
You don't want to ask non-open-ended questions, right? Like, how was it, good or bad, right? That doesn't allow for a conversation.
Instead of asking yes or no questions, I'm going to ask open-ended questions with a bigger answer.
He said to ask open-ended questions so that way we can get as much information out of the survivor as possible.
I learned that you should conduct the interview with respect and always be mindful of what you're saying and don't interrupt.
If a survivor gets emotional, we should just be very kind to them, and if they need time alone, leave them alone.
We shouldn't really interrupt them. We should let them have their moment.
Today we had a learning workshop for cameras.
We'll have 2 cameras filming survivor, and then 1 camera is going to be filming you guys.
She taught us why there's so many cameras, to have different angles and perspectives of the surroundings.
2 different angles, as you can see, and we have 2 different sizes of the shot.
The close-up shots, you should get the shoulders and up, the medium shots from the waist and up, and wide shots on the entire body.
We have 2 rings, this one zooming in and out, and this one, we adjust the focus.
In the filming session, I learned how to use a camera and make sure the picture was in focus.
She is a little bit off the center, right? Why? Because she is talking to someone. She is looking this way. We want to let the viewer know that someone is sitting across from her.
The rule of thirds is that you put the person on the right or the left. It looks more like they're talking to the other person.
The process I enjoyed the most was the audio. It was fun.
I learned a lot of stuff about how to use the cameras and how to use all these equipment. It could be very useful in the future. It's also important when the Holocaust survivors here to know and not just mess up, which would be really bad. But Now that I know how to do it.
From the visit to the museum, we each received like a packet and they had questions and we had to go around the museum and like discover certain things about the Holocaust, and I learned a lot of new things from that.
There were a bunch of pictures. One of them was just like a bunch of people after they got out of Auschwitz, and they were like really, really skinny and they had no hair, and it was really scary.
I remember a recording we listened to of a family in hiding. It was extremely emotional. I felt like something that I could never compare to.
The visit to the museum helped me by showing me a lot more of the factual elements of the Holocaust and the timeline and how everything happened.
In preparation for Name Not Numbers, we read a book called 4 Perfect Pebbles, and we learned the history of the Holocaust.
I spent a lot of time in social studies learning about it and doing assignments at home. Our life is kind of surrounded around it.
We reviewed all the questions, did mock interviews, looking over the questions and seeing what parts we were going to do, and I made sure I knew the questions well.
I'm going to be interviewing Eto Mikkel,
Yanni Helpert,
Trudy Albin, Ruth Mermelstein,
Josef Gross.
Today I'm going to interview Shmuel Axler. I feel really nervous. I've never done an interview before.
I feel nervous because I've never been in an interview with a Holocaust survivor.
I felt like I was going to be so sad because I'm going to start like tearing up.
Nervous, a little bit excited.
I'm scared that I'm gonna like mess up and say the wrong thing. I'm also being recorded.
We're about to do the interview. Even though I have spoken to survivors before, this is a big deal to really get like a one-on-one conversation where it's just me and him and I get to ask any questions that I want.
I feel like everything that I've read about and learned about is about to come to life.
My name is Erna Michael. I was born in Krakow, 1928.
My name is Shmuel Moshe Axler. I was born in Sanok, Poland in 1938.
My name is Ruth Mermelstein. I was born on February 29, 1928. I was born actually when it was Czechoslovakia.
My name is Trudy Albin. I was born in Czechoslovakia, August 18, 1929.
My name is Yitzchak Nuta Halpert, August 11, 1937. At that time it was Czechoslovakia, but right now it's Slovakia.
Josef Gross, January 1936, in Budapest, the capital of Hungary.
The small town where I lived, there were Jews, Protestants, and also gypsies. And we always lived very cohesively, very happily together. I was raised modern Orthodox. We celebrated every holiday. I had a very happy childhood. I was the oldest. I had two younger sisters. We had one apartment. My aunt and uncle, they had one son, had one apartment. My grandmother, with an invalid daughter, had the third apartment. We went to school. The church had the largest room and we all went together. Once we started elementary school, we all went to our own denomination. I went to a one-room schoolhouse. The first to the 5th grade, we were all together. I used to visit my grandmother. That was Bratislava, not that far away. Before the war, were happy times for me.
My father was a very from man. He was a Belzer, and he was wearing a stramo, he was wearing a Beckish. He have a big boot. And my father is getting a businessman, and he separated so this is singular. My mother gave in a business. 10 years old, I was already in the store. I don't went to school, I went to the store. I love this business. My father was never home Pesach, never Yom Tovim. Alle Yom Tovim, he was by the rabbi.
We were 8 children at home, 3 boys and 5 girls. My father had a wholesale grocery store with the 2 of his brothers. We had a truck and a truck driver who delivered all the groceries all over the country up to the Polish border. They had 3 shuls in Munkach. One was the Munkacher Rebbe, and he had a shul in his own house. My mother was very friendly with the Munkacher Rebbes, and she used to come a lot of times to our house. We had another big shul. It was called the Besmedresh. That's where we belonged. We had a lot of surrounding villages. They didn't have any yeshivas there, but our city, Munkach, was a pretty big city. So a lot of kids from the surrounding villages came to the yeshiva in Munkach. We went to 4.5 years of Czech school. All the kids in my class, we were all my friends. The Czechs were very, very good to the Jewish people.
I had 1 brother and 2 sisters. They were all older than me. My older sister was named Pesha, my brother was named Yoina, and my younger sister was named Esther. I also had a brother who passed away before I was born. His name was Feivel.
It was lots of Jewish people. My father was a Shabbos in a small shul. It was nearby where we used to live. I used to help for my father in the shul, a little cleaning and such things. 3 sisters. They are just one of them about 2 years younger. The oldest one, then 4 years. I went to school, I went to the yeshiva. It was the whole congregation for whole Budapest. And my father used to take us to my grandfather, the small town, Soboslo, in the vacation. And my father even took us to the mikveh.
My father had a store, a clothing store. We lived above the store. I have 1 sister, Malka, Olga. Our community was mainly Orthodox, so we were Hasidic Orthodox. Well, my childhood was a normal childhood. We spent all our free time playing soccer. I went to Cheder, learned Aleph Beis. The relation before the war between the Gentiles and the Jews were very good in our town. And we had a nice, warm family life before the war, you know. It was like very, very pleasant.
Friday night, my father would come home from shul. We would sing Shalom Aleichem. My mother would light the candles.
We went to shul on Friday night. We came home, had a nice dinner, gefilte fish, regular fish.
We had a big dining room. We had a beautiful stove.
My father would always bring home the yeshiva boy. They ate with us Friday night.
We usually had about 3 or 4 yeshiva boys who stayed with us for the meal.
Shabbat morning, we boys picked up for each family the children from the bakery. And then we ate, and then we went to Mincha Ma'ariv, then Abdallah. The main thing I remember is singing with my father Zemirot on Shabbat.
Shabbos was a wonderful, wonderful time.
I began to see the change in the people's attitude. In the shul, they were talking quietly. I began to see the fear in the adults, and I sensed something is not kosher, something is very, very wrong.
It was big anti-Semitism. They didn't let Jewish people in the students or high school or to get business. Then they have to put on like a Magen David on their clothes. They wouldn't let us to go out just a few times, hours.
There was a Polish woman who was taking care of me while I was a child. She became hateful to us. When the war broke out, she was throwing stones at us as we were leaving.
I was about 11, 12 years old when we heard that things were happening. They were taking Polish Jews away. I lived on the border between Czechoslovakia and then Hungary. A lot of people were trying to run away. Some of them safely crossed the border, but then there were others, and they were caught and they were put in the jail.
The Hungarians came in, so I finished 5th grade in the Hungarian school. The Hungarians were very anti-Semitic. I was only 10 years old. 2 girls took me down on the floor, held me, and the third one took a piece of bacon and rubbed it on my lips. I was very, very upset. My sister and I didn't go out on the street because they beat up a lot of Jews, so we stayed in the house. They didn't accept any Jews to higher education. I finished my 9th grades and that's about it. My mother gave birth to a little girl. Her name was Pestel. We called her Pesca. Being that I didn't go to school, she was my living doll. I used to bathe her and feed her and diaper her. Then they took away all the Jewish stores, my father's too, and they took him to a monopole. And I said, I'm going to go see, maybe I'll see my father there. I stayed across the street. Sure enough, I saw my father. He had a sack of flour on his shoulder, and I cried hysterically because my father had a small beard, and they cut off his beard. I thought that was the worst thing that they could have done to him.
I live in a building from 33 tenants. The second floor was living a modern couple. He was a professor, and she was a professor too. You know, they was knocking at the door, the German, they walk in, and they saw the 2 people hanging on the door. They took their life. When they saw this, they ran away. This was the beginning. I remember the last Pesach. He made the Pesach in the bedroom. He closed the window that the light, nobody can see that somebody lives there. He took the table in between the beds, and we sat down on the beds. He had ugeracht say that this was my letzte Seder. Voice in the less.
The war broke out in 1939. The Germans came into the town and took all the males away, whether to work or just to be bothered. And my father was beaten up. He managed to escape from the Germans and got to a Ukrainian house where the Ukrainian woman told him if her son comes in, he will kill her. So she made sure that he would cut his beard off quickly, and she managed to help him get out of the house. He managed to get back to where we lived. The children didn't recognize him because he left as a chassid with a beard and all that, and he came back close-shaven. The Germans and the Russians had made a pact, called the Ribbentrop-Molotov Pact, where they distributed Poland into half. Half was going to Germany, half was going to Russia. My father's father lived in the Russian side of the border. So my father decided to go to Brod, where his father lived. Some of the children came with him, and my mother was left in Sanok. We got there in the middle of the night, and when he got to the house, his father said, "Go away, Shed. I said Shiva for you already." He had heard that he had probably been killed in Sanok. The children started screaming, "Zayda, Zayda, he's alive. We're here, we're all here." So I finally opened the door and we came in.
I saw that the German come, throw the bombs. A bomb not far away from our house. And then they took us to the ghetto in Krakow. We sleep 10 people, one room, 10 people on the floor. And it's given Judenrein. Every time they took out somebody, and my family was gone, no more. In the ghetto, they make a gesetz, you have to wear a band, you know. Next to the band, you have to wear what you are. My father, very smart, he makes himself that he cannot talk. He stim. And the German, he looked for jewelry, for this. He put out a sign of the tear, scarlet fever. They're scared. They are very clean, the German people.
The Nazis didn't invade until right after Pesach, 1944. They drafted all the men who was Army eligible age. My father reported it was not the regular Army, it was called the Jewish Commando. I never saw my father after that. I was with my mother, my sister, the rest of the family, and then we were taken to a nearby town, and we were there in a ghetto. We lived in one house, and every family member had one room apartment. We went to work in a nearby farm. My two sisters, who were much younger, and my cousin, the parents set up like a make-believe school, a kind of school, and they kept them busy. Ours was fairly clean still, it was okay. Not great, but it was okay. We did not stay in the ghetto too long, maybe a week, maybe 10 days, not that long.
The Nazis came into our town about 1940, so I was about 3-4 years old. I began to see like gray SS uniforms and black Gestapo uniforms walking up and down the street. They were very fearful. They looked menacing. Whenever they see a Jew, they slapped us in the face or kicked us, whatever, so I was pretty aware of it. 1942, the first transport of 150 Jews were taken from Bardiev to Auschwitz. So then the Jews realized that they have to sort of disappear, otherwise everybody was on the list. But there's 15 families, and my family included, there's such a thing called Vinimka. We got exemption. The people who were needed, who had businesses that were needed for the German war machines, got exemptions. My father had a clothing store. He was able to provide the German soldiers with boots, with blankets, so he was necessary. So we did not have to go. The exemption was 90% proof, but not full proof. So if you did something wrong, they took you anyway. So that's why we were able to stay, my family was able to stay in Bardiev till 1944.
We saw two German officers the first time that I saw them. And they came in and they looked for my father and my brother also. And my father was in the soup kitchen. He made a soup kitchen because people were starving. We told them he's not home. They had a horse and wagon waiting for us outside, and they said, pack up a few things and we're going to take you away. They took us to the Kalush brick factory, and they locked us into one of the barracks, and they said that if my father doesn't show up, they're going to kill 1,500 Jews. And when my father heard that he surrendered, they beat him up terribly. They probably would have killed him, but they had a furlough, so they let my father go, and he came to stay with us in the brick factory, and we found a corner place, where we settled.
It was the big shul, they call it Kozinci, and in the middle of the learning, the Germans came in, and they filled up the whole area, and we went home, and they said, finish, don't come back. They restricted not to get out only an hour or something from the houses. They took my father and my mother to Germany. And my father, they killed him. He was maybe 30 years old. How old I was? I think about 8. Near Budapest, it was a house on the Swiss, Portugal. They were like, we were thinking we were going to be safe. Then after a while, they took us back to Budapest by feet. We were children, and they put us in ghetto.
From the ghetto, we went to Plaszow, concentration camp. And there I was working by straw. I make all kind of baskets. They put us on the uphill, doing thousands of people. 5 people to a line. And they call the name, and they call your name, you have to come. So they called my name. And my father said, if they call you, don't answer. I'm not going to listen to my father. I was scared for that they're going to hit me because they hit murder and they took dogs and the dogs eat you alive. So they put me in a room with a lot of people and I saw it's no good. I'm not going to come out. I was crying. My father comes in. He brought me coffee. They let him in. And I said, Pa, I want that you gave me my mother and you gave me my sister and we go together because they're going to separate us. You see what's going on. They separate the woman with the man. Like this, at least we are 3 people, we stay together. Then you're asking a rabbi, he said, no. So 2 days later, they took him away. And she was alone. And then he said, I don't want to live no more. He gave up. And they took him to Mauthausen. And this was the worst concentration camp for men. Because you work by stones, and they hit you. You carry the heavy stones of a barrack, of a hill, and they told him to bring it down and to bring it up, to finish, mit Koyo. And he never got gestorben. My mother was alone with my sister. The younger sister they killed alive. She went to a small town to hide, and there was 130 Jews. They went to a chimney, and they killed my sister, even off the chimney, off the steps. She ran away, never forget her.
The Russian under the communists was very, very difficult to make a living. The Russians suggested anybody who wants to go back, sign and come to the train station, and we will take you back. So we all went to the train station and got on cattle cars. They locked the doors, and 6 days later we were in Siberia. So it was very cold and it was very difficult. My father worked very hard. He cut down trees and dug coal, and it was very hard. We didn't have very much to eat, but we had probably enough to eat to sustain. Since my father was a very hard worker, he was able to manage to get a little more food. We spent about 2 years in Siberia. In 1941, the Germans attacked Russia. The Polish generals that were there asked the Russians, if you release my people, I can help you fight the Germans. I'll go to Iran, or Persia at that time, and I will set up an army and fight them. So a lot of Jews accompanied the Poles to go south to Persia, towards Persia. 2 reasons. One reason was going south, some of them felt that maybe they'll make it to Israel, and some of them just felt that to get out from the cold, bitter cold of Siberia to the warmer climate of the south of Russia, like Uzbekistan or Kazakhstan. So in the beginning of '43, with the Polish army, we moved to Uzbekistan.
We were taken to a deportation center. They were gathering from all the nearby small towns, all the Jews.
They said they're going to take us to a place where the family will be together, and the children will have beautiful playgrounds, and whoever is able to work, they're going to put them to work, and we believed everything they said.
They marched us to the train station, and we were shoved in the cattle car.
They pushed an radio of us. We hardly had room to sit or even to stand.
They locked the door, and maybe we traveled a day, maybe 2 days. There was very little air.
No bathrooms, no water.
When the trains opened, we saw the big sign, Auschwitz, Arbeit macht frei. Labor will yield you freedom. Schnell, schnell, fast, fast. Get out of the car, start moving. Orchestra was playing. There were guards holding on to dishes, guard dogs. They were Jewish prisoners who wore the striped uniform, and we lined up. We saw these huge chimneys. There was a terrible stench. We came in front of this general, Dr. Mengele,
who assorted us, women separate with the children, men separate. I had a little suitcase that I had the baby's clothes in it. My sister and me and my cousin were selected to his right. And I ran out of the line and he held me by my shoulder and he said, "Where are you going?" I said, "I'm just going to give this little suitcase to my mother." Mengele came in front of my mother. He looks at her and he said that where we are going, you know, I'm going to select again. That was the last time I saw them. I kissed the kids goodbye, but I couldn't even say goodbye to my mother. Neither did she. We were just choked up.
He motioned me on one side, and my mother, my sister, on the other side. I never saw them after that.
They told us to get completely undressed. All we were able to take is just our shoes. We came into a room.
They shaved our hair completely. There were spigots on the ceiling. We never knew whether water or gas would come out. When we came out, they just threw a garment at you. Everybody received a bowl. We were taken into a room. I received a tattoo A17291.
Letter A is for Auschwitz, 5878. We were taken into Block 26. It was three types of bunk beds in there, and they put 13 of us in one bed.
No mattress, no pillow, no cover.
It was a big place. We had to throw in every money, silver and everything, and they closed up the streets. They bombed almost every day, the American, the Russian, and the English. The half of house fell in, and we were in the cellar. We became safe. It fell some leaflets, and it was like they said that they are bathing in Jewish blood. They throw it probably for the Jewish people to let them know what's going on. The Hungarian Nazis, they were watching us. My grandfather, my uncles, everybody that took to Auschwitz.
Every Jew had to wear a yellow star with the name Judah on it. Until 1944, there was always fear, isolation, and we were afraid that any minute they're going to arrest us. They appointed a Gentile to be like the overseer of the CEO of the company. And so my father worked for this so-called CEO. We were lucky with our non-Jewish CEO because he was a nice guy. His name was Adam Nagai. And he realized that he does know nothing about the business. So he said to my father, "Listen, Mr. Pincus, I'm here because the Nazis told me to be here. I know nothing about the store. Whatever you tell me to sign, I'll sign." So in effect, my father ran the store the whole time. We had a police chief, the local police chief, name was Adam Bomba. And he was very good to the Jewish people. In his own basement, he saved about 15 Jewish boys. He sent a message to my father that the next day was supposed to be on the list. So he said, "Pincus, you better disappear because if I'm going to come with the Nazis tomorrow, I'll have no choice but to take you in." So that night we packed up. There was a family named Elephant. He was a dentist, so he had also exemption. We went to his house and he put us up in the attic. There was no windows, so we were 5 people there. My father, my mother, my sister, and my grandmother. And it was like very hot and humid, so we were walking around sweating all the time. He bought us food once a day. We had to be careful to ration the food so it should last us all day because they couldn't keep up going up and down the attic. They didn't want the people sort of to know that anybody was up there. And we stood in the attic for about 10 days until my father made arrangements to leave the city.
They sent me to the Skaržisko, and I worked by the ammunition. I was starving for hunger, and I was crying the whole time about my father. They sent me to Ravensbrück to work, and I was going someplace, and I found a potato. How I took the potato, I found that coat. I opened the lining from the packet, and I threw the potatoes in the lining. And then next to me, I have a concentration camp for Polacks. I went inside, I talked to them Polish, and I said to her, I bring you potatoes if you bring me hot water. I want to wash myself. 5 years I never took a shower. When I left to another concentration camp, Burga, Tirka, I was German. We stand up in the morning, they give us a slice of bread. The slice of bread is like my hand, you see this? Like told here, for 24 hours. They give us soup. I never could eat the soup because the soup was they take the beets from the earth and they throw it, they don't wash it, they cook it. I couldn't eat. People ate it and they got sick, they got typhus and they died. And I was never sick. I was hungry. I tried to forget. It was a house where the typhus people was living there. And I cannot see because the window was very dirty. And a woman goes through and she walks over to me and she said, what you staying here? What you looking here? You don't know what's going on there? So, no, I don't know. So today all people are sick, they have typhus. And the smell alone can make you sick. The smell alone. And we start to talk. We start to be very good friends. She come from Lemberg, I come from Krakow. So she said, Erna, do you want to run away? So I'm ready. You ready? I'm ready.
In Uzbekistan, they put us in a place called a kolkhoz, which is equivalent to a kibbutz. We starved a lot. They made both parents work picking cotton, and they served the workers 2 pounds of black bread, and it was not fully baked. So a kilo could be a very, very small piece, and it had to sometimes be enough for 3 days. Sometimes we had to make latkes from grass. My father was officially considered a Russian, but he didn't want to sign up for the Russian citizenship because if he did, he would go to the army. He didn't want to go to the army. So they arrested him a couple of times. He was sitting in jail till they released him. The Poles had set up a school, and so my elder siblings went away. I was too young to go to the school, but they went away to the school. My education was what my father taught me, Yiddishkeit. My father was a Balkoire, he was a Baltfila, so he was leading in Uzbekistan, he was leading the community, and the Russian police would have tried to arrest him because they considered him a Jewish leader. So it was difficult for him to be in public. We lived in a one-room mud house, and it was storming and raining and the house fell apart. The only thing that remained was the fireplace, and I was sitting next to my mother. My mother was crying. We were alone. My father was in jail. And I said to her, a little kid of probably 4 years old, "Don't cry, Mom. Tata will come home tomorrow." And he came home tomorrow.
Every morning, they woke us up very, very early.
4 o'clock in the morning, they woke us up, and it's Seilapel. We had to go outside. It could be raining, it could be snowing, whatever it is. We just had that one gray dress, and we were standing there for 4 hours till 8 o'clock. When the Germans came and they counted us, we were 5 in a row.
If somebody died during the night, when we had to stand outside, we had to wait till they found the body. And if the Germans needed, let's say, 300 people to a different camp, they counted, and you were taken and sent away.
And then we were walking to about half an hour back to Auschwitz, where we were working in one of the barracks. We had to go to the sauna, and we picked up all the clothes that the people left behind. We had to open the hams because they had jewelry in it. We had about 3 or 4 trucks coming every day, and the Germans had a house right across from where we were working, and we had to, all the clothes that we sorted, we had to give it to the Germans, and the trucks took it all to Germany. We got from them in the morning a piece of bread and a piece of bread at night.
We received some black water, they called it coffee, with a very small piece of bread. That was like eating straw.
Lunchtime, they gave us soup with the potato peels. Once we were working and sorting clothes, we found other things to eat, so we did not eat their soups. So it went back to the Germans that we are not eating their soups. They took us in a circle, all of us, and they gave us a big plate of soup, and we had to finish every drop. I found out that they put some drugs in it. We were drugged. They put on brome in the soup. And before they have all the medicines before surgery to put people to sleep, that's when they gave them brome.
After a while, you don't even feel hunger anymore, but you feel thirst. I developed boils all over my body, probably from malnutrition, and someone from my hometown. She was a doctor. She worked in the infirmary, and she would say to me, do not come in, because if you were there in the infirmary for some minor sickness or something very severe, they would just take the entire infirmary and ship them to the gas chamber. She risked her life. Sometimes she smuggled out some gauze, and then also if I found a clean leaf on the ground, she would clean my boils with that.
Our goal was to get to the town Mikolash, because that was a tourist town, and we were able to mix there and not be recognized, because nobody knew who was a native, who was not a native. We got a hold of a wagon at night. We came down from the attic, and secretly, the elephant family helped us. We put everything on the horse wagon, and we went to that first town. We were probably there for about a week, till my father made arrangement to go another 10, 15 miles to another town to reach the goal. It took us about a month to get to that town. Then the word got around to the Germans, the Gestapo said there were Jews hiding over there. So they started looking for Jews in the town. So it became very dangerous to stay in Mikolash itself. We were there for about a month. So then we went to a town called Ondrashov, a small town. Somehow we got there and we stood there maybe for a couple of weeks. But then it was even getting dangerous there too. They decided that we have to go into the mountain itself to hide, like underground. The mountain people also they were partisans, so they were against the Germans also. We were able to trust them. And people wanted to come join the bunker, so we wound up with about 40 people in the bunkers. There was nobody around, so we were not afraid to go out. Only 2 people knew where the food is, my father and this guy Moshe Zucker. So they went to get the food, and we had to divide evenly for 40 people. So the biggest adventure was everybody was looking that nobody should get a bigger portion. A lot of beans, potatoes, mainly vegetables. I was only 7 years old, and they were afraid that I wouldn't survive in the bunker because it was cold and freezing. So my father left me with the Gentile family in the town called Ondrashova. The farmer somehow let my father know it's getting very dangerous. People are asking, who am I, what am I? He's afraid that the Gestapo may get me and may deport me. So my father brought me up to the bunker. So I was there maybe no more than about 2 or 3 weeks. But my family was there probably about maybe a month and a half, 2 months.
We were full of flies, and my sister, they got typhus, but was very sick. They couldn't get up, they couldn't stand up. We were almost the time in the cellar, laying on the floor. We hadn't got things belonging or something. It was not a long time to get to Budapest, maybe 2 months or less.
We had 4 crematoriums right near us. It was a brick building. I heard a woman yelling, Shema Yisrael, and there was a little window, a little kid was grasping the railing and crying. Then an SS came from outside and closed the flap. In a few minutes, everything was quiet. Every time when I daven and I say Shema Yisroel, I always stand up to respect the woman who yelled out Shema Yisroel. And I still see that kid in the window crying.
I think what gave me strength to survive, I painted this picture in my mind that someplace the rest of my family is enduring all this hardship. And I must stay strong because the war will be over and I will go home and they will come home.
We were constantly sick, malaria, typhoid. My sister got very sick. They put her in the hospital. They felt that she had passed away. Shaved her head and threw her in the morgue. She woke up in the morgue among the dead. She somehow managed to get herself out of the morgue, back to the hospital bed. So her mother came the next day, and my sister said, "Please take me home. Here, I will die here." So that's how she survived.
We was walking slowly to Dachau. Dachau, they put the people in a barrack, and they put gasoline around and around, and they burned all the people. Because this time when ended the war, they were ruined that nobody sees it. He was going, and she said to me, "Erna, if I jump, you jump." And I jump, and I ran after her. We don't know where we're going during the night. We went inside to where the cars was, and we lay down on the straw, and she showed me always, "Don't talk." And we go outside. So, "Vilma, this Mensch, I don't like it. Well, I think he's a Polak." And I go over to him, and I said to him, "I'm very hungry. I need a piece of bread." Whoever comes in, she give you bread. I went inside, I walk inside. It's 2 SS man police. I was sure that he called the SS police. And all of a sudden, as if in Himmel, start to shake the windows. The bombs and he found. And the Germans say, he don't know that we understand. Oh, the war is to end.
My sister and my cousin and I were selected to work in a factory where we were making parts to for the planes. We were there not long, only about a week or two, and they didn't have any more parts for the plane, so we went on a death march. They gave us a piece of bread. It was the size of a brick, and they said it has to last for 3 days. We had no clothes, we just had that one dress. They gave us a blanket. We were walking for 3 days, and whoever couldn't walk, they just shot them and threw them in the gutter. They put us in an open cattle car. It was January, February, right? One day it was pouring. My blanket became soaked. The next day it was freezing. My blanket became a mold of my body. Then all of a sudden, we were standing in the cattle cars, and a girl looked out the window and she said, "I don't see any SS, you know, it looks like they all went away."
We were in the cellar. I remember Russian soldiers came in. A couple of days before, even whoever watched us or something in the ghetto, they fly away because they were afraid the Russians gonna catch them. They were against them.
The Russians were on one side and the Germans on the other side, and we were in the middle. Luckily, we were not found out by the Gestapo, because any bunker that the Gestapo came across, they'd order us not to deport them anymore, to kill everybody. We were found by a Russian patrol. So one day they came to us, he said, "Listen, tomorrow morning, 8 o'clock, we have ordered to start heavy bombardment to dislodge the Germans at the last push to get the Germans out. If you're going to stay here, you know where you're going to survive the bombardments." So we were given 24 hours to leave the bunker. So he told us that about a few miles away, a few mountains away, the town, the Americans already took over, liberated. My grandmother couldn't make it, so she went to sleep and she passed it. She died right there on the spot.
One time we were traveling in a train. That's how the transportation, wherever we had to go from one camp to another, we heard a lot of airplanes, a lot of shooting. When the train stopped, the doors opened, and there were soldiers dressed in uniform. I didn't recognize. They spoke a language we did not understand. It took them a long time to convince us they are the American Army. The war is over.
This bulletin has come to you from the NBC newsroom in New York. The German news agency Transocean said today in a broadcast that the Allied invasion had begun.
Early Tuesday morning, numerous landing craft and light warships were observed in the area between the mouth of the Somme and the eastern coast of Normandy. At the same time, paratroops were dropped from numerous aircraft on the northern tip of the Normandy Peninsula.
This means invasion.
We hugged and we kissed and we cried. I'll never forget that minute.
The Russians came in. They came in the cellar. I remember they got some bread, like square bread. We grabbed it from them.
Joy, mostly joy and fear.
Because we knew that we had nobody home.
I sat down on the step and I put the head on the wall. I couldn't no more walk. You know, I was half dead, completely midlife.
The Red Cross took us over and they gave us oatmeal. I think that's what saved our stomachs. Our stomachs wasn't used for food.
We actually got liberated before the official liberation because the Russian patrol, they warned us about 2 weeks before they officially declared Slovakia liberated. We were together, the whole family again, except for my grandmother. We came back to Bardov. We came back with a Russian army truck. They took us back. My father went back to the Tatry Mountain. It was still freezing over there. And they found the body, and they brought her back, and they gave her a proper quarter. And she was buried in our town. We lived there till 1949. Bardov became more or less pretty normal life with a lot of anti-Semitism. There was actually more anti-Semitism after the war than before the war. All the non-Jews, they moved into the Jewish homes, and they already thought they were going to keep the homes, so they resented the fact when we came back that they had to move out. The highlight of our town after the war was when we found out that there's going to be Israel again. Bardov became like a center of Zionism, you know, the center of recruiting young boys to go to fight, to join the military in Israel. And a lot of them did go to Israel to fight for Israel.
The Red Cross took us to Sweden and they put us into Helsingborg. It was a big school. They put on bunk beds and we were there for 4 months in the quarantine. And then they announced if up to 18, I was just turning 17, and up to 18, you can, they'll have another place for us in Fjellgården where they're going to teach us Hebrew and English. So I came there with my cousin. My mother had a half-sister in Philadelphia. We were the first ones that sent us papers, and we were the first ones to come to Göteborg, and the first refugees leaving Sweden.
I went to Krakow to see my family. And I stayed a little bit with my mother. My sister was in Czechoslovakia because she didn't want to take her to Poland. Have no papers, no passport, no money. Ma, I am going to Prague. I found my sister. I went from door to door looking for my sister. We went to the Hungarian consulate. So I said, how are you Hungarian? So my father was Hungarian, my mother was a Polish. Okay, you were okay. They gave me passport. They gave me papers. And I come there in Krakow. In the Shabbos, gekommen Shabbos, and I went to shul. And she given a pogrom in the shul. And I went to my mother and I said, it's not the place for us, we have to get out from here. They're killing the Jews. That's the second war. I moved to Belgium and I live in Belgium, and I married my husband in Belgium, but I known him from Poland. He was in Landsberg in the same concentration camp like me. After the war, they asked us, where you want to go? America, you want to go to Israel? I said, I want to go to America, and I want to make money, and then I go to Israel.
My aunt, and she went all the cellars, all the places where children were, then she found us. First I was a little in Budapest. It was bombed and they had houses. Then a cousin or somebody took us to a small town. They call it Bator, near Bator. It was no Jewish children, nobody. We went to the public school and they beat me sometimes. They said, Moshe, come home. Then I went to a children's home about in 46, 45, where they took Jewish children together. And I grew up there. I went to bar mitzvah there and everything. Then we left, we ran away from Hungary. We went through water to Czechoslovakia. We went there, we were there 4 weeks. Then they were also communists. They gave us back to Hungary and they put my mother in the jail for a couple of months. A couple of years I went to yeshiva. Then it was a revolution against the Russians. They came back in 56. Then we ran away to Austria. And then we came to America.
The Real West was stepped in, and the Jewish organization hired us. They gave us clothing. They gave us a Europass, and we could travel wherever we want to go. And just wanted to get back to my hometown. I got back to my home. We had a large house. Everybody who arrived came and stayed in that house. My mother, my 2 sisters were killed, which I didn't know till later. My father's brother married my mother's sister, and they left Europe, I think in 1942, and they had 2 sons, and they came to America. My aunt and uncle sent me papers, and I came to this country 1946 in the spring.
In 1945, the war ended, and the Russians allowed Polish citizens to leave. But since my father was not really a Polish citizen, he didn't really have Polish papers, so we had to find illegally to get papers to get out. Some people helped us with some money. We were able to get false papers. And we ran away in the middle of the night. We made it to the train. The train was cattle cars. From Uzbekistan we got to Armenia, we got to Azerbaijan, to Baku. People were stealing from us, whatever we had. Then we had to get on a boat to go from Baku, which was in Azerbaijan, to Russia. My father said, I'm afraid to be in Russia because they may arrest me because I'm not a fully Polish citizen. We managed to get to Krakow, back in Poland. In Krakow and other little towns, there were actually pogroms and people were killed. There was a Rabbi Schoenfeld from England who had saved the kinder transport. So he did the same thing to the survivors, to the Yisoimim and so-called Yisoimim. My brother and I and my sister went to England. My older sister was too old to be included, so she stayed with my parents. And they managed to smuggle their way to Belgium, to a DP camp. I lived in London. Once my father got established in Belgium, he brought us from England to Belgium. In 1950, the Korean War broke out. My father felt that 2 world wars was enough for him. He said, we have to find a way to get out. My older sister had married a Baba V'choset. They had gotten to the States a year before, in 1950. We managed to be in touch with them, and they got somebody to sponsor us to get to the States. So we got to the States in November 1951. was a 3-week ship crossing.
The 13 days on the boat I was sick.
We came with a military ship.
Military army boat. I don't remember too much because I was seasick most of the time.
The women were separated from the men, and the men were in canvas bunks.
One bed on the other. It took maybe 10 days. We came to New Jersey.
1946 we come to America. I have already my child, my son, Manhattan. I have very good children, die gesucht, suchende Kinder. Whatever I want, I have.
They put us also like a small lager or something, and they made the papers, and they examined everybody. When we got in from the ship, we got a letter of welcome from the President Eisenhower. I went to live in Williamsburg. I was working like at that time, sewing, by sewing machine, by clothing, jackets or such things. I went to work to Manhattan. My wife used to live in Israel, in Beersheba, and she came here. Yeah, 8 children.
We came to a Hayas building, Lower East Side. We came on I think it was a Friday morning, so the first Shabbos. My sister lived in a 1-bedroom apartment in the Lower East Side, and the 7 of us lived in that room for over Shabbos. I spoke English, so I was somewhat more acclimatized. I could communicate. Since my brother-in-law was a Bava Chosset, I started going to school with the Bava Yeshiva. At the age of 17, I joined Bnei Akiva. I met my wife-to-be. She came from Boston. She was also belonged to Bnei Akiva. We went out, and eventually we decided to go to Israel, and we married in Israel. I have one daughter.
They put us up in the west side at Hotel Endicott on 88th Street on Columbus Avenue. They gave my father a certain amount of money to get by and said, then you're on your own. But luckily, a lot of Jewish people came, and they knew they're immigrants, and they offered people jobs. So my father got a job immediately. It was a 3rd or 4th day here. He became a salesman. We moved to Williamsburg. Then my father found out about Yeshiva Torah in Williamsburg, so he enrolled me over there. And as soon as I got there, I felt, I was home.
We came to Philadelphia, and my aunt had a big house with 3 floors. So 1 floor they gave us for the 3 girls. My husband lived in New York. We went out for over 10 months, and then once we went to the zoo, and he proposed to me in the zoo. Then a few months later, we got married in February 48. So we moved to Flatbush, and we found the house that I live in now. We have 1 daughter and 2 sons.
I did not speak any English. The first summer, my 2 cousins worked in a summer camp, and they asked the owner, they said they have a cousin who just came from Europe. Could they give me some kind of a job? I was with all young people all summer, and they let me stay there. And I used to clean up the doctor's office, the owner's house, and I picked up the language. I worked in a factory, and I went to school at night. In 1950, I met a handsome young man. I married him. I had 3 children. Unfortunately, I lost a son from a heart attack a couple of years ago. And now I have 7 grandchildren.
Sometimes we witness a nightmare and we might give up hope. All we need to know is the ending. If the ending is good, then we won't give up hope. Our emunah will not falter. We'll stay strong because we know the ending is good.
People can go through rough stuff in life, but in the end, they know that Hashem did it for a purpose and that He's still there.
The lesson you can learn is that
Hashem has a reason for everything.
Just because we don't know the reason doesn't mean that it's not there.
Our people are flourishing. We have a country of Israel, a country we can call our own. The key thing in dealing with tragedies and dealing with an unspeakable decade of horror that was experienced is to always realize we know the ending, and with that we'll be able to keep our emunah strengthened.
Rabbi Chatofsky's message was that we should always believe in Hashem, and we should never forget. Like, He's always with us.
After interviewing a survivor from the Holocaust, I feel like I have more emunah now.
If Holocaust survivors could go through so much and have so much emunah, then like we should be so thankful for what we have, and just to always strengthen our emunah, to like look back at this program and see like, wow, like they had emunah and so can I.
Wipe the word hatred out of your vocabulary. Learn to live together. Be proud of who you are and respect everybody else.
Not to forget.
You should know what really happened, and I hope that you'll have a healthy and a happy life. You should meet the right one at the right time and live a long life together.
Go to Israel. That's the one place.
Be proud, wear the yarmulke, wear the Magen David. Keep talking, keep vocal. Don't make the mistake we made. When you see anti-Semitism, speak up against it, fight against it. Let them know we're here, we're not going no place.
Because of what's happening now, we have to infuse in you the knowledge that this existed. We should find a way to resolve it. We can't, it's too late for us.
After going through this program, my message would be to always stand up for what's right and never be a bystander and don't follow the herd.
I think that we should stop spreading anti-Semitism and give undeniable proof to people who don't believe the Holocaust happened, that it actually did happen. Met a Holocaust survivor.
We should learn from the mistake of what they did, because it's a terrible thing to do to people.
Be grateful and have hope, because if you don't have hope, then you don't have anything.
We should treat one another the way that we would want to be treated.
Bring out the best in everyone else and bring out the best in yourself. So it's not like a bad thing if you're different, but like use everyone's differences to just bring better like energy to the world.
This experience changed my life because now I believe that if something bad ever happens, there will be an end and there will be good after that.
It's important to learn about the Holocaust during the midst of what's happening in Israel and anti-Semitism throughout the world, because never again.
We hope it never happening again. But if you see what's happening, what the Hamas did, so you see that it could everything happen.
There were no words that I could tell you the pain I have in my heart and how it hurts me when there's so much anti-Semitism again in this country. We have to make sure that Israel exists. If we don't have Israel, we have nothing.
You know, we suffered enough for all of you already. No more, that's what I say.
If I had to pick one word to describe my Holocaust survivor, I would pick fearless, because he's been through so much, and I think they're very great.
Optimistic, because they had to go through very hard things and they were able to get through it and they survived. They showed the world that we can do it, we're still here.
I would describe him as a believer because he believed that the war would end and he would have a normal life after.
Very strong, because she's very strong mentally and physically. She's one of my role models.
It's just so crazy to me that someone can rebuild their life from something like that. To carry on, to have children, to get married, it was just something that very inspiring.
אני מאמין